in Woodland.
Actually, before I really get into the meat of what I want to talk about, I'm going to hand it over to my husband, Reverend Bill Baker sometimes, and Butch R. Baker other times when he's performing. So, Bill, you want to give us a song?
Certainly. I enjoy doing this one. And it is a sing-along, so don't be shy and rescue me from some of the parts. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people sharing love today. Imagine there's no country. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but you know I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
So, the theme I want to talk about today is prosperity. And you know, I've been teaching spiritual principles of prosperity for, several decades now. And I found that money is actually pretty easy to manifest. And I'm guessing that all of you here know about the law of attraction, where you just hold an intention and poof, something shows up. And I've just seen that happen over and over and over again for people. It really is not that hard. But that's not what I want to talk about this morning. What I want to talk about is this whole paradox that now that more and more and more of us are learning all about the law of attraction and how easy money is to manifest, why are we collectively in such an economic downturn? You know, there's just countless books out there now and teachings and techniques for manifesting more money. From the metaphysical techniques to the more pragmatic financial strategies. And, you know, here we are at a point where more and more of us are, we've read all the books, we're practicing the techniques, and we're still just, you know, as poor as ever, sometimes poorer. You'd think at the very least that all the many, many new thought communities out there that all have spiritual prosperity work as an integral part of their teachings, you'd think at least they would be these little, overflowing hotbeds of wealth and prosperity, you know, you'd think. But I've done a lot of traveling in recent years and met with a lot of different communities, and they just seem as poor as anyone. And I guess what I wanted to talk about today is what's up with that? What is up with that? It's not that these techniques aren't valid. It's not that there isn't truth to them. There's a big emphasis in popular law of attraction teachings on the power we have to separate ourselves from the collective experience and to create our own reality. And that's a principle that's very true, it's very powerful, it's important. However, you know, I believe we're in very changing times. Times are different now than when a lot of these teachings broke into our collective awareness. Starting back in the 80s kind of reaching their peak when The Secret went big time on Oprah, I think that popularization of The Secret really represented a point of mass assimilation of some of those principles. And there's been a shift. Yes, there really has been a shift. Humanity is different. We're changing. We have changed, and not just in the really subtle, you've got to be sensitive to perceive it kind of ways, but in ways that are very obvious, they're very dramatic, they're all around us. And that shift has everything to do with humanity finding its power together, by coming together. And the power of the collective experience right now is such that right now I think we're being called to have a collective experience rather than separate ourselves from it, as a lot of popular teachings emphasize. And you know, there's just examples of this everywhere nowadays. You can just see it all around. We can see it in the ways that governments have toppled in the last year or so. And grassroots political movements are just rising all over the world without a head, without a top-down hierarchical directive. They're just sprouting up really from the grassroots. And you know, even Time magazine called its Person of the Year in the end of 2011 the protester. And just think of what a protester is as somebody who's found power by joining with many other people in common intent. We're seeing that careers can now be made by people going directly to the masses via YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and crowdfunding sites, and are skipping the once necessary intermediary of established industries to career build. And technology, in fact, has evolved to a place where it's now starting to evolve us. MIT has, in the last 5 years, opened a Center for Collective Intelligence, studying this connection of the human mind and the computer and the network formed by it. And they're saying that the internet is actually enabling the emergence of a sort of human hive mind that's more intelligent than any individual mind separately. And the clear message that we as a species seem to be broadly assimilating and acting upon is that we can have more and be more when we band together, and not just locally in our own little tribes, but globally as a species. And this is the power piece that gets left out of most law of attraction teachings. Before we can personally effectively change our experience of prosperity, I think we need to acknowledge how we're part of the collective. And as part of that collective, we actually, each of us, are part of creating the financial, malaise we're in now. And now, of course, it's not all that hard to see how a whole attitude of me, me first, got us into this mess. And it's really easy to aim it at the power structure, the greedy banksters, the big corporations, the crooked politicians. But what's a little bit harder to recognize is how we all are part of that me consciousness in ways that are maybe very subtle and easy to miss. That me consciousness isn't just about the billionaires and the corporations and the power hierarchies. And it's not just a matter of overt greed either, or malevolent intent. Its more subtle manifestations might look like all the ways we get so caught up in ourselves that we don't really have anything left for the world around us. It might look like depression, where we just get so turned into ourselves, or getting absorbed in our worries and survival fears. Or becoming just so busy with the demands of life that we don't have any energy left to just reach out in kindness or caring to a neighbor or anyone in our lives. It sometimes can look like stubborn self-sufficiency that forgets that other people might actually want to be there for us if we would just bring ourselves to reach out for help. It could take the form of owning lots of stuff that we seldom or never use, but don't share or release. Just imagine your typical neighborhood block and just think of all the stuff in each house that is seldom or never used and not shared, but everybody's got to own one. And just multiply that by millions and millions. You can see that it's not that there isn't enough, it's that there's some stagnation, some separateness that we're clinging to. Now, as me consciousness got us into this crisis, the only way out is through we consciousness. And prosperity in this era really needs to come through cooperation and collaboration and community. Interdependence, I think, is the new path to prosperity. In fact, resource sharing has become this hot new business model, like the hugely successful Zipcar. Some of you may know about Zipcar, where you don't need to own a car to be able to have one to drive whenever you want. That's become a business model that is actually happening in lots of different contexts. So, for any of you out there who are wanting to create more prosperity in your life, I suggest as a starting place that you give some attention to your current experience of interdependent community. And I so love to talk about this when I'm in a community, because you just have the opportunity to build it bigger and deeper and better. If you've been too busy in your life, or too stressed, or too depressed, or too caught up to reach out for help or to give help, this may be exactly what's in the way of your experiencing more prosperity. And it may be less, it may not be in a very clear-cut cause and effect way, because sometimes that connection can seem obscure, and yet energetically there's a powerful connection, and in ways that you just can't even imagine. There's a lot of connections to our interdependent connection to other people and the way we allow money to flow into our lives. And now, a couple of years ago, several years ago, right around the big crash, I think it was, 2008, I heard this Lakota psychiatrist talk on the radio.